Huston here on Money Matters Radio. Joining me in studio is Bill Tierney from Virtual Home Real Estate. Bill is a realtor down on the South Shore and mainly covers 5 towns, being Marshfield, Hingham, Scituate, Cohasset, and Weymouth. Bill, thanks for joining me here today.
Chris, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Now, Bill, I actually live on the South Shore myself, and I've read your real estate blog and find it very informative, actually. The website is williamtierney.net, right?
That's it.
And for an outsider who's thinking about moving to a town like Cohasset, Hingham, or Marshfield, you really do a great job of not only blogging about those real estate markets, but really showing the personality, so to say, of each town through posting events and what's going on in these different communities. So it's really pretty cool.
Yeah, Chris, thanks. It's a bit of an effort, and I work hard at it, but what I'm trying to do is not showcase different houses at different price points that might work for somebody. Sure. More, really what I'm trying to do is give you a feel for the different communities, what the community lifestyle is like, what you can do, and if you've got this or that appeals to somebody, that's what I'm trying to convey in there. So, before you get in your car and drive down the South Shore, hopefully I can show you some of the different things that you might want to look at while you're down there.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I've seen posts highlighting athletic events with the high schools or farms or festivals in town. You really give a wide range of information, so thank you for that. I find it very helpful.
It's good to know somebody reads my stuff.
Yeah, well, I want to talk about a specific post you actually made recently. As you brought up a topic that I come across frequently, and I think a lot of people don't truly understand, and that is the value of working with a buyer's agent. Maybe I'm wrong, but was that post triggered by a real scenario you came across?
It was a debate I was having with a buyer. We were out, and he was like, "Well, isn't buyer agency just some sort of marketing gimmick you guys put together?" You guys being my industry.
Sure, you could definitely tell that there was an edge to your post, but it was very informative for sure.
Well, it's an important piece. You forget, or people blur that realtors are all the same. But starting in the mid-'90s and really probably 2004, 2005, buyer agency became a bigger piece of the equation. And you now have to, by law, on the first meeting with a potential client, is disclose your loyalty. Are you a buyer's agent or a seller's agent? And there's a form that most customers have seen or should have seen on their first meeting with a realtor. Okay, so it does happen where you can actually be both. A lot of times if somebody is out there on their own and they walk into a house and meet the agent that is listing the property, there can be one agent involved, but what you're saying is the agent right up front has to disclose basically what team they're on, is what you're saying. Very, very much so. I mean, most often, and with some of the bigger firms, there should be something posted saying that agent is the seller's agent, and they represent the seller's interest, not you as a buyer.
Sure. Well, I think it is very important for people to realize the difference between a buyer's agent and a seller's agent. There's a definite difference, right? Can you explain to us the value of a buyer's agent?
A buyer's agent owes his loyalty to the buyer, not to the seller. It's the seller's agent, or and his job is to get the seller best price for the seller and to act in the seller's best interest. As a buyer's agent, it's my job to work on behalf of the buyer and on his best interest. So, seller's agent is really supposed to get the best price for the seller.
His client, yeah.
That's what he's getting paid to do. As a buyer's agent, yes, I'm getting paid out of the commission from the seller, but my job is to educate you and give you full disclosure on what's going out there. Things the seller's agent does not have to disclose. For instance, there's some little things. Does the guy, the seller's agent doesn't have to disclose that the guy across the street puts 3 bazillion Christmas lights, and has a parade of cars going by for the month of December,
which does happen.
Do you want to live across the street from that? Who knows?
Sure.
But it's You also, you want to educate your buyer, as a buyer's agent with a purchase strategy. Well, hey, Chris, here's a 2,500 square foot, 3-bedroom center entrance colonial. There's 4 of them in the neighborhood, and they've all sold for X
amount of dollars.
200,000, 500, whatever the neighborhood is. But why is this house, X plus 20%? Maybe it's off by price, but you want to help the buyer come up with a bidding strategy so that he's going to get a fair price or pay a reasonable price.
Sure, and that's something that is I think overlooked, and people don't realize how important it is to come up with a strategy. Also, the buyer's agent is really acting as like the quarterback for the buyer, right?
Very much so.
They know who all the players are on their team, so to say, or on the offense, right?
I like the quarterback analogy. I might steal that from you.
I always bring it back to Mr. Brady.
Amen. But I do. I come with a list of attorneys that I know are capable and reasonably priced. A list of mortgage people who can handle different scenarios from credit or down payment
or whatever it is. Yeah.
Whatever those issues are. Home inspectors, say you do the home inspection and there's an electrical issue. I've got a couple of electricians, so we can get that question answered, and really kind of help a buyer as the buyer's agent make an educated decision.
Sure, and also when somebody's buying a home, a lot of times they're coming in from out of town. They're not necessarily buying in the same town, and it's important to be working with a professional that knows the landscape of that town.
Oh, yeah. Every town has its nuances, and different towns, it's funny, people prefer to live on this side of town or by the schools or by the baseball field or, by the beach. Each area has its pros and cons, and sometimes, from when you're from out of town, it seems real nice, but, do you want to live across the street from the Marshfield Fair in August?
Yeah. People don't realize that. And most importantly here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is where people stray, is that the buyer is not paying for your services. It's not they're not writing you a check, correct?
No. Buyers rarely write me a check. I get paid from the listing agent's compensation. So, yes, there is a nominal conflict of interest in that I'm getting paid out of the purchase price. But I do owe my allegiance to you to help, to give you, as they say in the form, my undivided loyalty, reasonable care, disclosure, obedience to lawful instruction, confidentiality, accountability, to provide and negotiate the best price and terms for my client, which would be the buyer, where it's the same set of verbiage, but best terms for their client, the seller.
Sure, but I come across this scenario all the time. What I meant by my last statement is that when I'm talking to a prospective buyer and I'm getting them pre-approved, right, or helping them with their financing, when I ask them if they're working with an agent, and somebody hesitates or says, I'm not sure, when I ask them why, a lot of times their answer is that they think they're saving money, because they're eliminating the agent from the process, when in reality, the buyer's agent is playing a major role to negotiate on your behalf, to educate you on the property, buying a home is 99% of the time the largest investment you're ever going to make. So you want to make sure that you have the A-team in place who's going to be able to break that all down for you. It's somebody that does it on a daily basis.
Well, the first thing is just to come up with a pricing strategy. It's nice to walk in and say, hey, I like this house, let's buy it. But what are you going to pay for it? What's it worth? What are the comps? Are there 3 other homes in town that have sold? Are you going by price per square foot, relationship to assessed value? Is this house similar priced? Oh, but it backs up to the highway or sits next to a cemetery, or the detracted factors that should come into your pricing strategy. That's the first thing you do.
Sure, and I actually came across a scenario recently where a client was buying a home, and the buyer's agent made comment that their next door neighbor had frequent yard sales. I believe, possibly a pub, like how they make their income. And they said, every weekend they're selling stuff out in front of their house. Well, if you look at the home on a Tuesday, right, and they don't have everything set up, you're not going to know that, and the seller's agent is probably not going to tell you this, and the seller's not going to tell you this because they think nothing's wrong with it, which, not that there is, but you know what I mean. A lot of times people don't want traffic or people parking on their lawn every Saturday morning.
That's the full disclosure that I'm talking about. And a great analogy.
It's important to know that if you're purchasing a home and not being represented by an agent, and you contact the seller's agent to purchase their listing, they get the full commission, whereas if you had your own agent, your agent would split it with the listing agent. It doesn't come out of your pocket.
It does not come out of out of the buyer's pocket. Rarely does the buyer pay me. I do. I have a goal of trying to earn 2.5% of my transactions, and sometimes when there's maybe a 2% concession offered to the buyer's agent, and I'm trying to make 2.5. Sometimes we ask for 2.5%, and most times the seller will, because they want to accept the offer, they'll come up with the other 0.5%. I haven't had that situation actually come up, but we have had to ask that I get the full 2.5%. But it's not as you said, it's not a check coming out of the pocket from the buyer, because I'm paid out of the seller's proceeds.
Yeah.
So my services largely are free to somebody, but I can document how I can save people time and money just with the process I have. Chris, first, let's sit down. Let's take a look at what you want to do, what kind of house you want to buy, what you like, what you don't like, and you can't say I want 3 bedrooms and a 2-car garage. Because, do you want a contemporary? Do you want a ranch? Do you want an antique? Do you want it on a main street? Do you want it on a quiet street?
There's a lot that go into it, and there's a lot of questions that people don't realize need to be asked.
I always say to people that I don't really help people find a house. I help you eliminate them.
That's actually a great line. Now, switching to the other side, in regards to a seller's agent, there's a value add, obviously, to hiring an agent to sell your home for a whole other group of reasons. Can you break down some of these reasons for us?
Seller's agency is a different game. It's really about pricing and marketing, but the pricing strategy is 75% of the game in today's market. Starting with you've got your house, we come take a look at it. It's nice. You've done the kitchen, you've done the bathrooms, you've got a new deck, the lawn's mowed, everything looks just wonderful. But what do you charge for it? And you have to, again, go back and take a look at the comps. What have other similar homes sold for? And that's kind of neat. But then you got to go through a little bit more of a strategy of, well, how are you going to price your home relative to your competition?
How do you fit into the market?
Yeah, if you've got, we'll pick on the 3-bedroom center entrance colonial again. If there's 3 of them on the market, do you want to be the most expensive one and wait for those first 3 to sell before your home comes on the market? Before your home is the cheapest one, or do you want to be the price leader so that you're not waiting for 3 other houses to sell before yours becomes the most attractively priced one?
That's a great point.
One of the other things that I look at is what's the absorption rate? How many of those homes are selling every month or every quarter, so that how long it's going to anticipate. How if there's 3 homes and we're selling 1 a quarter, if you're not the price leader, it's going to be, if you're the second cheapest home, it could be 6 months before you see an offer.
Sure.
And so there's a strategy there. Then there's the other strategy of well, let's look at the homes that didn't sell. They're called expired listings, but somebody priced their home and they priced it for too much and sat on the market for 120, 150, 180 days before they called it quits. And you don't want to be one of those guys, and that's really
a great way to look at it. Because a lot of times people aren't looking at that side of it. You're taking a step back and say, wait a second, what's not working here? So that makes complete sense. Changing our tune a bit, another popular topic in today's market, unfortunately, is short sales. I know you do a fair amount of these. You actually have a website dedicated to the topic. It's
Massforeclosurehelp.com.
That's MAFORECL
MASS.
MASS. Okay, FORECLOSUREHELP.com.
Correct.
Right? Can you explain to the listeners? I think this term gets messed up frequently. What is a short sale?
It's probably one of the more confusing things in the marketplace right now. A short sale, in the simplest forms, is you're selling a house for less than what is owed on the note on the home, meaning that somebody may owe $300,000 on their mortgage and be selling it for $250,000, and so when they come to the closing table, they are short money that's owed on their note. And in the current environment, with what's commonly called the Obama plan, is there's an incentive from the government to forgive that $50,000. There's some incentives in the bank, which we can talk about today.
Sure. So it's not necessarily that somebody is currently missing their payments, because now we're going down the path of a foreclosure, correct? So this is somebody that is making their payments?
Is or is not. It's they're both lumped in there. Sometimes a short sale is because the seller can no longer afford the payments, and they can't sell the house for what they owe on it.
And so the exit strategy is to do a short sale.
And sometimes people call it a pre-foreclosure sale. You know, they're trying to do a short sale and sell it before the bank takes it, and the bank has some incentives to participate in that too.
Okay, so if I'm a listener out there and thinking about trying to sell my home, but think that I owe more on my property than what it's actually worth, where and when should I start looking into a short sale?
Well, in two scenarios. One, if you're struggling to make your payments, and you've come to the realization that you can't sell the house for what you owe on it, that's probably the first time to start looking at a short sale, and work with somebody that knows how to do a short sale, has the team in place to negotiate with your lender to help you gather all the documents that your lender is going to want, because it's almost like applying for a mortgage, but you're going to do it backwards.
Sure. Now, who do you contact at that point? Do you contact the bank? Do you contact a real estate agent, an attorney?
Well, so you can see right away I'm going to steal your quarterback analogy from a couple of minutes ago. That's really one of the jobs that I've done, and as I've grown my short sale business and become pretty well versed in it, I've got the whole team of people, from the attorneys that negotiate the short sale to the appraisers, to understanding how the bank is going to, how the lender is going to want your documentation, which documentation to get, and how to collect it, so that we can make that piece of the negotiation seamless. And right through to quarterbacking the appraisal process. It's a lot more paperwork and a little bit more time involved, probably an extra 60 days when you're doing a short sale. But you said, when do I do it? The other answer to that question is, if you're having financial troubles and you've got a notice of intent to foreclose from your lender, certainly please give me a call. But if you've come to the realization that you can't sell your house for what it's worth, and you want to need to move, you're getting transferred, you've got, you've had a third kid and you need another bedroom, or whatever the scenario is, I can help you with that too.
The bottom line is, this is not a process a homeowner wants to navigate down by themselves, right?
No, it's confusing with terminology, with the paperwork. I always liken it to, it's like applying for a mortgage, but you're doing it backwards. When you apply for a mortgage, you get your tax returns, your pay stubs, an appraisal on the house, and document that you can afford to pay for the house, and the house is worth, what you're borrowing. In a short sale, it's kind of, with people who are financially distressed, we do it a little bit backwards. We collect your pay stubs, which may be lower or different, or you've had a change in lifestyle where maybe one spouse can't work or isn't working. And we collect the tax returns. I do a broker's price opinion on the property, and what we're trying to say is, look, this is why, to the lender, why we cannot continue to make these payments. And the bank has two options at that point. They can do a foreclosure and take the property, and it'll take them 3 to 6 months to get that property back on the market, in which case they're going to be responsible for the property taxes and the maintenance. Or they can do a short sale, where we can document it, and we can take one occupied cellar out, put another one in, and generally that's actually a better deal for the bank because the property doesn't go down.